There are several reasons why a Simplex technician may specify a non-shielded 2-conductor cable for audio transmission in a Simplex MAPP NET system. Shielded cables incorporate a metal shield surrounding the inner conductors. This shield is connected to ground at both ends of the cable. When a shielded cable is employed for audio transmission, the shield assists in preventing electrical noise from external sources from interfering with the audio signal. Shielding is particularly crucial in environments with substantial electrical equipment such as data centers or industrial facilities. Shielded cables also mitigate crosstalk. Crosstalk arises when the signal from one cable interferes with a signal in an adjacent cable. Shielded cables reduce crosstalk by preventing the magnetic fields generated by the signal in one cable from affecting the signal in another cable. Compliance with standards also plays a role. In certain instances, building codes or industry standards may mandate the use of non-shielded cables for specific applications. For example, the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, necessitates the use of non-shielded cables for fire alarm systems in particular buildings. Costs and ease of installation are additional factors. Non-shielded cables are generally less expensive and simpler to install than shielded cables. The absence of a shield eliminates the need for grounding and the potential for ground loops, which can introduce noise problems. In this specific scenario of audio transmission in a MAPP NET system, the technician is likely specifying a non-shielded cable for reasons pertaining to grounding, noise reduction, and ease of installation. The consequences of not connecting the drain wire on a shielded cable are also important. If the shield of a shielded cable is not properly connected to ground, it can function as an antenna, picking up electrical noise from the surrounding environment. This noise can then interfere with the audio signal and degrade its quality. The importance of using a non-shielded cable instead of a shielded cable for audio transmission in a Simplex MAPP NET system is to maintain signal integrity, reduce noise, and ensure compliance with relevant standards. If the shield of a shielded cable is left unconnected, it can actually worsen the noise situation, acting as an antenna and introducing unwanted interference. Therefore, even though the intention may be to simply ignore the shield, the presence of an ungrounded shield can have detrimental effects on the audio signal. Firstly, proper grounding techniques are essential for shielded cables. The shield is designed to divert unwanted electromagnetic interference, or EMI, to ground, preventing it from affecting the signal conductors. Without a proper ground connection, the shield cannot perform this function effectively. Secondly, the type of audio signal being transmitted is relevant. Analog audio signals are more susceptible to noise than digital signals. If the Simplex MAPP NET system uses analog audio, the use of a non-shielded cable becomes even more critical to minimize noise and ensure clear audio transmission. Thirdly, the distance of the cable run matters. Over longer distances, the potential for noise interference increases. If the cable run is relatively short, the impact of using a shielded cable without grounding the shield may be less noticeable. However, for longer runs, the ungrounded shield can act as an antenna, picking up significant amounts of noise. Fourthly, the presence of other electrical equipment in the vicinity can influence the decision to use non-shielded cable. If the cable is routed near high-voltage power lines, fluorescent lighting, or other sources of EMI, the need for proper shielding and grounding becomes more important. However, if the environment is relatively free of electrical noise, the difference between using shielded and non-shielded cable may be less significant. Fifthly, the Simplex MAPP NET system's design may incorporate specific grounding requirements. The system may be designed to work optimally with non-shielded cables, and using shielded cables, even with the shield unconnected, may introduce unforeseen problems. Therefore, it is essential to adhere to the manufacturer's recommendations and specifications. Sixthly, the potential for ground loops should be considered. Ground loops occur when there are multiple ground paths between different pieces of equipment, creating a circulating current that can introduce noise into the audio signal. Using non-shielded cables can help to prevent ground loops by eliminating one potential ground path. Seventhly, the cost of the cable should be taken into account. Shielded cables are typically more expensive than non-shielded cables. If the budget is a concern, using non-shielded cables may be a more cost-effective solution, especially if the environment is relatively free of electrical noise. Eighthly, the ease of installation should be considered. Non-shielded cables are generally easier to install than shielded cables, as there is no need to terminate the shield. This can save time and labor costs, particularly for large installations. Ninthly, the availability of qualified technicians should be considered. Properly terminating and grounding shielded cables requires specialized skills and equipment. If qualified technicians are not available, it may be safer to use non-shielded cables to avoid potential problems with improper grounding. Tenthly, the long-term reliability of the system should be considered. Improperly grounded shielded cables can be more prone to failure than non-shielded cables due to corrosion or other issues. Using non-shielded cables can help to ensure the long-term reliability of the system. The specific requirements of the Simplex MAPP NET system should be considered. The manufacturer may have specific recommendations for cable types and grounding practices. Following these recommendations will help to ensure optimal performance and reliability of the system. The electrical code requirements in your jurisdiction should also be considered. The electrical code may have specific requirements for cable types and grounding practices, particularly for fire alarm systems. Adhering to these requirements will help to ensure the safety of the installation. The potential for future upgrades or modifications to the system should be considered. If there is a possibility that the system will be upgraded in the future, it may be wise to use non-shielded cables to avoid potential compatibility issues with future equipment. The importance of proper documentation should be emphasized. All cable installations should be properly documented, including the type of cable used, the grounding practices employed, and the routing of the cables. This documentation will be helpful for troubleshooting and maintenance in the future. The benefits of consulting with a qualified electrical engineer should be considered. A qualified electrical engineer can provide expert advice on cable selection, grounding practices, and other electrical issues. Consulting with an engineer can help to ensure the safety and reliability of the installation. The importance of ongoing maintenance should be emphasized. Cable installations should be inspected periodically to ensure that the cables are in good condition and that the grounding connections are secure. Addressing any problems promptly will help to prevent more serious issues from developing. The risks associated with improper cable installation should be understood. Improper cable installations can pose a safety hazard and can also lead to performance problems. Taking the time to install cables properly will help to minimize these risks. The advantages of using high-quality cables should be recognized. High-quality cables are typically more durable and reliable than low-quality cables. Investing in high-quality cables can help to ensure the long-term performance of the system. The importance of proper training should be emphasized. Technicians who install cables should be properly trained in cable selection, grounding practices, and other relevant skills. Proper training will help to ensure that cables are installed correctly and safely. The need for clear communication between all parties involved in the installation should be emphasized. Clear communication between the Simplex tech, the installer, and the end user will help to ensure that the installation meets everyone's needs and expectations. The value of thorough testing should be recognized. All cable installations should be thoroughly tested to ensure that they are working properly. Testing can help to identify and correct any problems before they cause more serious issues. The benefits of following industry best practices should be understood. Following industry best practices for cable installation will help to ensure that the installation is safe, reliable, and meets all applicable standards and codes. The importance of staying up to date on the latest technology should be emphasized. The field of cable technology is constantly evolving, so it is important to stay up to date on the latest developments. This will help to ensure that you are using the best possible technology for your application. The risks of using counterfeit cables should be understood. Counterfeit cables are often of poor quality and may not meet applicable standards and codes. Using counterfeit cables can pose a safety hazard and can also lead to performance problems. The importance of purchasing cables from reputable suppliers should be emphasized. Purchasing cables from reputable suppliers will help to ensure that you are getting genuine, high-quality cables. The benefits of using cable management systems should be recognized. Cable management systems can help to organize and protect cables, making them easier to maintain and troubleshoot. The importance of protecting cables from damage should be emphasized. Cables should be protected from physical damage, such as cuts, abrasions, and crushing. Damaged cables can pose a safety hazard and can also lead to performance problems. The need to avoid overbending cables should be emphasized. Overbending cables can damage the conductors and insulation, leading to performance problems. The importance of using the correct tools for cable installation should be emphasized. Using the correct tools will help to ensure that cables are installed properly and safely. The need to follow the manufacturer's instructions should be emphasized. The manufacturer's instructions provide important information about cable installation, termination, and grounding. Following these instructions will help to ensure that the installation is done correctly. The importance of verifying the polarity of connections should be emphasized. Verifying the polarity of connections is essential for proper system operation. Incorrect polarity can lead to performance problems and can even damage equipment. The need to properly label cables should be emphasized. Properly labeling cables makes it easier to identify and troubleshoot them. The importance of creating a cable schedule should be emphasized. A cable schedule is a document that lists all of the cables in a system along with their origin, destination, and function. A cable schedule can be very helpful for troubleshooting and maintenance. The need to keep cable runs as short as possible should be emphasized. Shorter cable runs are less susceptible to noise and interference. The importance of avoiding sharp bends in cable runs should be emphasized. Sharp bends can damage the cables and can also increase the risk of noise and interference. The need to support cables properly should be emphasized. Cables should be supported at regular intervals to prevent them from sagging or straining. The importance of protecting cables from moisture should be emphasized. Moisture can damage cables and can also lead to corrosion. The need to protect cables from extreme temperatures should be emphasized. Extreme temperatures can damage cables and can also affect their performance. The importance of protecting cables from chemicals should be emphasized. Chemicals can damage cables and can also lead to corrosion. The need to protect cables from rodents and insects should be emphasized. Rodents and insects can damage cables by chewing on them. The importance of regularly inspecting cables for damage should be emphasized. Regular inspections can help to identify and correct problems before they cause more serious issues. The need to repair or replace damaged cables promptly should be emphasized. Damaged cables can pose a safety hazard and can also lead to performance problems. The importance of disposing of old cables properly should be emphasized. Old cables should be disposed of in accordance with local regulations. This is important to protect the environment and to prevent the cables from being reused in unsafe applications. Understanding these aspects is important in understanding the Simplex MAPP NET and associated audio cable implementation.